We're talking about ghosts today, and we have Harry, which we've already spoken to. We had a really interesting conversation before. Um, but this one is completely different. So I don't know where to start, man. Like, can you share like something?
For sure, no worries. Yeah, hi. My name's Craig Harry. I'm a past life hypnotherapist and a paranormal researcher, and I'm based here in Australia on the Gold Coast. I've been doing this for about 25 years, and got a few experiences and stories in that time. So we can dive in the deep end and start exploring.
So, that's really awesome. You help people with hypnotherapy and to go back maybe even to past lives
Yes,
or experience an undo trapped emotional energy, something of that nature, I'm guessing, right?
yes,
But ghosts,
yes.
that's different. So what is your experience with ghosts or some sort of literal experience that you had? Yeah.
Yes, yes, and that's the thing. Most of us not exploring the spiritual research side of it. Most of us are exposed to some sort of contact or knowing people that have had contact with a spirit in the form of a ghost. So we all tell ghost stories, or we always watch a program about ghosts. And um, when we have a friend that tells us this really happened and they were affected by it, we believe them because that's first-hand information. So you've got a witness and or witnesses, and it's usually the first thing we explore in paranormal. So yes, we all have a story or know of someone that's had a story, and especially today with the internet now and different programs where they go ghost hunting, there's more evidence on camera as well of what we would call ghosts. So it's becoming normal subject in life for people to talk about, and people are it's always amazing. They'll believe a ghost story before they believe UFOs or past lives or other things like that. It's something we're very exposed to. So I had some experiences with ghosts before I kind of got into my area of research. So that's how common it is to have some sort of contact or some sort of event from what we call a spirit. Yes.
I'll just say that I'm quite open-minded. I don't automatically believe people that see ghosts, but or have a story. I lived in Thailand for many years. Everybody there has seen ghosts. Like it's so common there and also in the Philippines. But I chalk it down to superstition above
Right.
all, and like common, like it's very big in their culture,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
But in the same time, I don't know. So I'm not like arrogant about it. Yeah, they're wrong or anything like this. No, I don't know either way,
Yeah.
and until further notice. That's my
Yeah.
stance. Yeah.
And that's the way to be. You got to seek the evidence. And I'm the same. I was evidence based in my research and experiences. So it's great if people have a story, but it's kind of until you experience it or see some evidence of it, then it's hard to accept it. Yes. And now we are gaining that information and evidence on camera as more and more people are doing their ghost research that way. Yes. Um, and again, when you have a personal experience, then you know how real it is. But it's a weird thing to accept when you're logical and scientific, and you go, well, How does that work? If that is real, how does that work? Yes. And it's kind of the first evidence we have of the afterlife. It's kind of the first evidence we have of a soul. Because if a ghost exists, this invisible energy that's left from a human life, then that has to have a name. It has to be something. So you could call a ghost a soul. So then you've got that opening up a new area. Then you go, all right, this soul has survived the death and it's still haunting this area. And then we go, wow, that's spooky, and uh, then you kind of go, well, all right, if there's a soul, then there has to be some sort of afterlife. There has to be some sort of thing we belong to or run through or how it works. And then it opens up more questions and more areas to explore. Because if we have a soul, if there's a ghost, then there's an afterlife and there's a heaven and there's a system behind that. And eventually there's some sort of authority or management of that we would call a higher intelligence, the light, the source, the creator, God. So by exploring ghost stories or investigating ghosts and seeing the evidence of it, that's the first step in that whole journey. Yeah.
So I get the logic. I
Yeah.
get the chain, and yeah.
Yeah.
But what is your experience with
Oh, for sure.
ghosts or souls or spirit? And
Yeah.
then I have some more questions about some of the details
Okay.
that you've given.
For sure. Uh, Before I became a hypnotherapist, just through friends and relationships, I was staying at my girlfriend's best friend's house, which was a townhouse, double-story townhouse. And I've always been one to feel things, like feel if people are happy or sad, or feel if someone's staring at you, that sort of thing. We've all got that to a certain degree. And it's weird. You'll turn around and someone's staring at the back of your head. How did you know that? You just feel it. You feel something different there. So when I was in this person's townhouse, you had to go upstairs to use the bathroom. So I went upstairs. There was a vacant bedroom with the lights off. And as I walked past, I just had the feeling that someone was staring at me from that darkness in that room. I thought, okay, that's weird. Go to the bathroom. On the way back, I feel it again as I walk past that doorway. So I was already kind of exploring, reading different books about spirit and everything. Didn't know what to do with it, but I was exploring the evidence that was out there written by other people. So to explore the unknown, you have to ask questions. So when I went downstairs and spoke to Debbie, who lived there, I said, who is in that spare room up there? And she looked at me surprised. And she said, who told you? I said, no one's told me. I said, I just get a weird feeling when I'm walking past that open doorway that someone kind of doesn't like me being in that area. That was the vibe I was getting. And she said, yeah, you're right. She said, I have this little invisible friend in the unit here. They were here when I moved in. And she said, it's fine with her, it likes her, but it doesn't like men being in the unit. And I said, really? Okay. And I said, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? And she's like, oh, I live with it. It's fine for me. And weeks later, she had her younger cousins over, and one was only about 7. And he went upstairs to use the bathroom. And she noticed he'd been gone a while. And when she went upstairs, he was talking into this room with no lights on, just talking into the doorway. And she said, "Who are you talking to?" And he said, "Oh, the invisible man here." So she was like, "Okay, that's not good. That's not healthy. I'm going to have to change this." So she asked me, what should she do? And at that stage, I'd been reading about how to cleanse a house of energy, mostly negative energy, or what you call an earthbound or a ghost. So I told her the steps and the principles and how it works to do a house cleansing. So she got some friends over who did the circle, did the meditating, and did what they had to do to move it along. And she said the house just felt lighter and brighter and happier after they did that. And she never had the feeling that something was there in the unit with her again. So that was one of my first experiences with a ghost, a real one. And what they simply are is a person that has died, they've crossed over, but they haven't continued the crossover. You hear the saying of, "I saw the light and I went into the tunnel of light," that people describe in a near-death experience. Well, with an earthbound soul, for whatever reason, they've got unfinished business here on earth that they can't let go of. So they stay on earth. They don't go into the tunnel. They don't go toward the light. And they stay here thinking they can resolve whatever they had to resolve, or they can't let go of whatever issues. But the thing is, they're invisible and we can't hear them. So it's very frustrating for them that they can't still interact with us, but sometimes they can interact by things like that. Energy of, you feel something there. Sometimes it's sight, that you can see some sort of shadow moving. Sometimes it's objects, they can move objects around. Sometimes it's with electricals, that they can switch electricals on or off and affect them. So they can show us physical movement and evidence if they're around. And it's confusing for us because we don't know who they are, what they're trying to tell us, what their issues are. And that's where you kind of need almost like a psychic, clairvoyant, to make contact with them and find out who they are and what they are. The other ghost hunters, they have different electronic devices that they try and make contact with ghosts that are in a building now. So they're using ghost box and ghost lights and white noise amplifications and recordings, where they're trying to get some information. It's a hit and miss. Whereas if you get a good psychic that can walk into the house, they can make immediate connection and tell you who this person is and why they're there, and hopefully help them move along. So yeah,
You've mentioned evidence a few times,
yes,
and I'll ask you about that, but I'll tell you what makes sense to me.
yeah,
I know the type of person that will be uh, kind of like, I don't want to be mean, but dumb enough and stubborn enough to remain attached to their own bullshit, like after they're dead, and
yeah,
continue like continue with their own
yes,
this right. I know the type of people, so that makes sense to me. I get
yeah,
that, like,
yeah,
they are just like, yeah. um okay. And so this, like, I get it, like they are unhappy,
yeah,
or they have something that they are, let's call it, attached to or obsessed with, or something
yeah,
that they are not ready to rest and move
yes,
on, right?
yeah,
And then, somebody needs to come and talk with them and guide them and help them. And we kind of do that in coaching also. Like,
yes,
it's similar. So I think I'm kind of getting what needs to be done. So if I ever meet an angry ghost, I'm equipped.
yeah,
Um, but like I guess my mind is going towards the evidence that you've mentioned. Like I don't
Yeah.
need any hard proof or anything like that. I don't know if you can even provide that, but I like the systems that you are describing are interesting. And also, I'm not sure, but Alex, did you want to ask anything or share? Go on.
I wanted to comment on you say there is evidence,
Yes.
like video, right? But
Yes.
the problem I have with that is that you can fake it very easily. So we
Yes.
don't know what is true, what is not true, what is real, what is not real, right?
Yes.
So it's very hard for me to believe in this. I mean, in the evidence. What you said
Yes.
made sense, right? About the they're still holding something here and they're trying to fix it, right? This made sense,
Yes.
but the evidence on video, like for me, it's very hard to get
I
that.
yeah, yeah, I understand. Let me just see if I can bring this up for you because yeah, I'm evidence-based too, and I like to find evidence. Let me see.
If you have anything that you want to like share your screen and show, that can be cool.
Yeah,
If
I'm just trying to bring it up for you. Let's see if they'll have it. There was a movie made called The Ghost of Flight 401. And the movie was made with Ernest Borgnine, the actor. And I'm just trying to get what year it happened. I think it was 1972, from what I can see. Yes. Okay. So let me see. I'll just bring that up again. There we go. All right. This is kind of trying to restore the screen we had. Let's see. Okay. All right. So the Ghost of Flight 401, 1972, basically it was a flight down to Miami, Florida, and they were having problems with a wheel landing gear indicator in the cockpit. They couldn't tell if it was up or down because of a simple bulb. The bulb wasn't working to say the gear was locked. So they asked the engineer, because they had three in the cockpit, they asked the engineer to go down to the front wheel well. There was a window that he could peer into from the under cabin, and he could see if the landing gear was up or down. So he's climbing down the electronics bay and down to the landing gear, and he's peering out in the night. It's a night flight. So he's trying to see if the landing gear is locked into position or halfway. As he's looking through the landing gear well, he can see the Everglades, the marshland coming up in the night with the ambient light. They weren't watching their altitude. They were so concerned with the landing gear, they forgot the altitude. So he tried to yell out and rush and tell them, pull up, you're going to hit the ground. But it was too late. They hit the Everglades and nearly, I think about half the people on board were killed, including him, because he was in the nose gear section. They rescued all the rest, and because the plane was relatively major valuable parts were intact, they recycled them and put them into other parts in the airline fleet to salvage them. Whatever plane had those parts, pilot and crew started to report the engineer, who Ernest Borgnine played, would be on board if there was a problem. He would be cited like a solid physical person, sitting in a passenger seat or standing in the stewardess area, and he would tell them, look out for engine one, it's going to overheat, or look out for this hydraulic problem. and he was still trying to do his job at trying to help people. He couldn't let go of trying to help people with the airline, and it became that widespread and that well known that he would appear, and pilots and stewardesses had seen him, that the airline in the end, and passengers had seen him too, that the airline in the end, they had to collect all those parts off that plane and just put it in a warehouse, and just keep it in the warehouse and not put them on any other planes. And that kind of stopped the sightings of him being on other airline jets. So that's a popular movie, and it's a true story. So plenty of witnesses, plenty of information, and in that case, his earthbound spirit was doing a good thing. He was still trying to help. And then after that, no more sightings. So that's called the Ghost of Flight 401. And just trying to see. Yeah, Flight 401. Yep. So I saw that before I kind of had any of the ghost stories that I've had. And yeah, that one piqued my curiosity. Hello?
Yeah, you were here
Yeah.
listening to you.
No worries, all good. I'm still trying to restore the screen.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. There we go. Restore. Got it. Terrific. So, yeah, that's a well-known case. You're right. As far as all the other ghost investigations, it's hard to tell if they're faking evidence or if they're really getting good evidence. Some seem to be fairly good in their investigations, but again, unless you have an independent person with them to confirm it, it's hard to prove. I can only say from my experience that the ghost encounters I've had with witnesses, it was definitely real for me, because that's not the only ghost encounter I've had.
So that's very interesting, and I'll definitely look it up to see, because if I never even heard, you hear about a few stories of UFOs that
Yeah.
landed in like public areas, I think in South America, or maybe there's other cases that there are many witnesses. Of course, I've
Yes.
not corroborated any of this, right?
Yeah.
But I've never heard of a case of a mass sighting of a ghost or a spirit. So that's just interesting to note.
Yes.
I don't know. So I thank you for that.
Yeah.
I like I don't know yet what to think or what to say.
Yeah.
Like this
No.
is very new. But if you have another story,
Yes.
another encounter, that could be interesting.
For sure. For sure. I've got several. Before I got into this,
Let's do
I'll-
let's do one more
yep,
and yeah, and wrap up. Yeah.
for sure. Um, Had some friends, went out for their birthday party in Brisbane. We went to a very old heritage pub, hotel, and a lot of history, a lot, nearly 80, 100 years old. And the young girls are partying on, they're drinking. I'm a non-drinker, so I'm the designated driver. And one of the girls, she says to me, I'm getting a weird feeling. She said, I'm getting a vision of my cousin, and he's having an accident at home, and it's a terrible accident, and it's really upsetting. And she said, I'm going to have to go and call him. This is terrible. She didn't know if she was psychic. She was getting a vision of something happening, or what. And so off she went to call her cousin to see if he was all right. And her other best friend came over and she sat next to me, and she started describing she was seeing a vision of this young girl. She was in danger and she was getting attacked by a man, and she didn't understand it either. And she could see this vision while she was talking to me. And I'm thinking, what the heck is going on here? Is there a gas leak or what? Both these girls had been drinking. Both of them had the vision when they sat at the table where I was for some reason. And they were quite upset, but quite adamant it was real. So the next day, I questioned him again. I said, what happened there? What was going on? And she said, well, I rang the cousin and everything was okay. Nothing had happened to him, but she could swear she could see it, in color right there in front of her face, that terrible things were happening to cousin. And when I spoke to the other girl, she said, I have no idea who this girl is. All I could do was see this movie-like thing happening in front of her, and terrible things were happening to her, but she escaped finally. I even got the name out of her and where she thought it happened. And I did my own calling around, and there were no police reports or hospital reports of anyone to that description or name that had happened. So all we could put it down to was the history of that hotel, that there must have been a ghost, an earthbound spirit there. And in this case, it wasn't a nice one. And when people get drunk or they use drugs, their energy barrier around them, something what you call an aura or force field, whatever you want to call it, it weakens. And it appears that earthbounds can then tap into that person and affect that person while they're drunk, while they're under drugs. And if they're negative, they can mess with them. And it appears like nothing happened to me while I was sitting there because I was sober. But to both of them, they were getting these terrible visions in this old hotel. So that was another first-hand case of, okay, something weird is happening here, but it's happening right here. And both of them were witnesses to it. So a lot of people do describe negative experiences with ghosts and earthbounds too. And some of them can be quite evil too. So just like people in real life, you can have nice people and you can have terrible people and evil people. It's the same when they cross over into spirit. I guess in society, we have so many ghost stories of negative things, of scary things, because anyone who crosses over and doesn't want to go to that tunnel through the light and go to heaven, maybe it's because they've been a criminal or a murderer or someone of negative energy, and they're a bit scared or apprehensive what's going to happen when they face their maker. So they stay on Earth thinking, I'll just avoid that and stay in limbo. And so, yeah, a lot of people will describe, especially children, will describe loving spirits that they see in their house, like maybe their deceased grandmother or grandfather. And they might appear for a couple of seconds, and they drop into the grandkids, with a smiling face just to let them know they're fine. Lots of people have described relatives when they've died, they've appeared in their house hundreds and thousands of miles away, or clocks have stopped, or their photographers fell off the wall, or something has moved in the house to let them know it was that person. So loving, kind souls, they can drop in before they leave to make contact with their family members, and they can show themselves that way. Sometimes they can do this days or weeks later, and sometimes several times. And it's not that they're an earthbound, it's just they're trying to make contact to help their family members before they move on. In other instances, because I always ask all my friends, do they have any ghost experiences or spirit experiences. And quite a few will say, oh yeah, we moved into this old house and straight away these things were happening, or only happening to one person. But yeah, it was very real to them. And sometimes in the end they had to move out of the house because they just couldn't stand living with that energy in there anymore. And sometimes the person has deceased in that house, and in their mind, they think they still own the house. Sometimes they think they're still alive. They're just having this weird kind of dreamy experience. They lose perception of time. It might be 10 years, but to them it's still the same day. And their attachment to the house and their emotions are, what are you doing in my house? Get out, you know? So that's why a lot of earthbounds seem to be in buildings, and they stay in buildings. Other times it can be around the accident scene, that they're sighted around that accident area, or murder area. And in other cases, like the ghost of Flight 401, he's attached to the actual physical aircraft that he died in. So most of the time there's an area involved. Sometimes they affect just one person, and they seem more focused on that one person. And sometimes they might move 2 or 3 different houses, and this thing will follow them. So they're kind of like, ouch, what do I do now? And now, if we understand that the soul is energy, then we understand that when a person dies and they cross over into a spirit form, they're still energy. Now, when the soul goes through the tunnel of light and goes to heaven, there is abundant energy there, and they're 100% in a loving, beautiful environment, and they don't feel exhausted or drained or anything like that. An earthbound that's still in the physical world here on the physical dimension, they have very low energy, and they're not thinking right, they're not experiencing it correctly. And a lot of people describe that if they go into a certain room, they feel the temperature drop. It's cold. That room's cold. Or like in my case, I just feel someone staring at you, or, you know, you just feel that energy of someone being near you. And yeah, so as a ghost, sometimes they have to pull energy even out of the air to kind of exist in that area. So it's like they've got a flat battery, and they're just getting a jumper lead out of whatever energy they can tap into. It appears that it takes a lot of energy for them to show themselves in an apparition. It takes a lot of energy to move an object, and that's kind of why it doesn't happen all the time, because that kind of drains them in that area too. Some that are, you know, have been in that house or been in that area for quite a while. They've learned to adapt, and they've learned to manage it and develop their skills, and they're quite good at haunting that house and moving objects. There are means and ways to move them on and block that energy. And I tell people, never be afraid of ghosts. They're just a person that's lost their body, and they just outstayed their welcome, and they have to be moved on, just like someone sleeping on your lounge, you know, for the night, and they say, oh no, I'm going to stay here all week. It's like, sorry, time for you to move on. And it's the same thing. They've had their life, they've had their body. There are things they need to go back to heaven for, and down here they can't fulfill those needs. So they're just delaying whatever growth and returning to the source that they should be doing. Yeah. Yep.
So I like the detailed explanation, like about, you know, the lack of energy and how they are struggling just to exist here. Like it's not their element, it's not their area.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
it's all very, very, very interesting. Like something to think about, which I have not really in the past. Um, yeah, like a lot to consider here. But yeah, I think we can wrap it up with this. Alex, was there anything else that you were thinking of?
I was just thinking about the soul. The soul, you said it as energy, right? Like you mentioned something like it's like there is a weight to it, something like this, right?
The Earthbound soul, or through the tunnel of light to heaven?
No, you say when you die, your soul. How you
Yes.
say it does
Yes. Soul.
it's
Yeah.
energy, right?
Yes.
Is there any scientific evidence of this or not?
Let's see. There's a lot of research into all these different areas. All I can point to is the near-death experiences that have been documented. There's a good documentary called The Day I Died, and it's a BBC documentary, and it's got a lot of medical evidence of people having a near-death experience, and not only evidence of what was happening in the operating theatre at the time that they couldn't have known because they were totally unconscious, if not flatlining. And they can fully describe what was happening in the operating theatre from where they were floating above their body and watching the whole proceeding. So doctors have said, yes, that's exactly what happened. And there's no way they could have known that because they were clinically dead. So within that documentary is a patient called Pam Reynolds, and she's one of the best cases because she had to have a she had a massive aneurysm and she had to have brain surgery. And what they had to do was it was a near-death operation where they chill the body down and they stop the heart and they stop the brain almost functioning. And she has buzzers in her ears and her eyes are taped. And the buzzers are there so that the brain is, the EEG's flat. So that way they know they can operate on her. And if the brain is registering any consciousness, it'll register the buzzing in her ears, and they need more anesthetic then. So she was basically, EEG was flat. Her heart had stopped. They had her on a heart bypass machine, and they chilled her body down to something like 10 degrees to preserve the brain. And in that state, she had a near-death experience. She flowed out of her body. She could describe exactly the instruments, what procedure they were using, even what people were wearing and saying in the operating theatre. And the neurosurgeon said, that's exactly right. And there's no way she could ever know that because she was clinically dead on the table. So in instances like that, you have evidence of something leaving the body, a consciousness that was floating up near the ceiling that could see and hear, and you would have to term that as some sort of energy from within the body, what we would call a soul. So they have a lot of cases like that in that BBC documentary with medical witnesses and experts to testify for these near-death experience people. Yes.
So why don't we hear about that more often?
People have these near-death experiences and ghost stories, but they don't want to share them with people for fear of ridicule and fear of being laughed at. So they keep it personal. When I talk to people, I will ask them, 3 or 4 basic questions. I'll say, have you ever seen a UFO? Have you ever seen a ghost or spirit? Have you ever had anything paranormal happen? And I was a work colleague that I was working with for nearly 6 years. A guy that would never do always straight down the middle, no exaggeration, no, not into anything sci-fi or paranormal or anything like that. And I asked him, and he seemed a bit shocked. And he said, yeah, he'd had a near-death experience himself. And I was like, really? And he's like, yes. I said, wow, I never knew. He said, that's because I don't tell anyone. He said, I don't want anyone to laugh at it. He said, but seeing you asked, he said, yes, he was suffering a bad flu, and his blood pressure dropped, and he popped out of his body on the kitchen floor, and his wife was a nurse. She was working on him, and he's trying to yell to her to say, I'm here, I'm floating, I'm okay, but she couldn't see or hear him. And then he described seeing a beautiful white light appearing, and he was like, wow, that is amazing. He loved his wife, like he died for his wife in life, but he said that light was like a thousand times more in love and forgiveness and understanding and everything. And he was more or less told it wasn't his time. And when the ambulance paramedics arrived, they had the better treatment. They got his blood pressure up and restored him, and that's when he popped back into his body. And he didn't tell anyone except for his wife, and he was reluctant to tell me as long as I kept it his identity secret. So you can talk to people and just throw those questions out in, conversation at a barbecue or wherever, and see if anyone does say, yeah, I've seen a ghost, or yeah, I've had this spiritual experience, or I know of a friend that's had a near-death experience. So it is common out there. And now we're talking about it more and more because we're now accepting it more. You have to understand, for something like, 1,000 years, people used to get burned at the stake for talking about these things. So it has been suppressed. The ancient cultures, they accepted it. They would openly accept that a person has a soul, and obviously from stories of other people having near-death experiences, and they would accept that there are things like ghosts because they'd have experiences that way. And it just seems like as our science and technology took off, we pushed it to the side and went, well, that's fairy tales and folklore and everything like that. So in one way, we had it harder to try and convince it, but now we're getting evidence. Now we're taking it seriously because we can talk about it openly on the web through documentaries. Whereas before it was suppressed, even from mainstream religion, it was suppressed. That you couldn't really talk about these things, So I'd say in the last 100 years, we've come a long way in accepting people's stories of, their first-hand witnesses and their experiences. And now through technology and infrared cameras and white noise recorders and things like that, we're building up evidence that way too. And now with modern medical equipment, we can verify if these people are actually dead and what they've seen and what they've experienced. So yes, there is more evidence of the soul and survival after death, and of going into the light, or being an earthbound spirit for a temporary time. All earthbound ghosts and spirits will eventually go into the light, and they will eventually go back to heaven. It's just a temporary stay where they're confused. There are soul guides on the other side, our teachers, and they will know that one of their students is lost. It's an earthbound, and they will come and talk to them and say, what are you doing here? The show's over, come home. And it's all by free will. Spirit works by free will. So you can't force someone to come home. And it's only when they want to come home that they'll go into the light with them and end being a ghost in that area. Of course, the negative, evil people won't be in a hurry to go home, but somehow our soul guides do coax them back home. But if you are a living, breathing person and you have a negative energy or ghost in your house or anything, there are ways and means of moving them on, of doing a house cleansing and clearing. And yeah, you don't have to put up with it. And yeah, it can be solved.
I feel with your stories and that are very interesting also about the UFOs, that even though we have so much science and technology, we still don't know anything. We still don't understand anything.
Oh,
And
we are just at the tip of discovering true science. We
right,
like to think we're wow, we've got the cutting edge of this and that and everything. No, there's so much more to discover. And won't it be interesting if we can develop technology that can take a photograph of a soul or can measure a soul and prove it and verify it? There's Professor um, oh, it's a hard one to pronounce. Puthoff, I think. He's worked with a lot of United States government projects, and one of his was developing electronics that could be affected by people's ESP, and he got positive results as a scientist to prove that just the power of thought could affect an electrical circuit in a special environment. So he has documented that, put his papers in about that. So yeah, we're getting there in measuring this energy that humans seem to have, and a, a certain connection with UFOs is also ESP, that they're interested in our DNA with people that have that some sort of ESP, and that is a connection that humans seem to have this extra sensory perception. So through technology, we might be able to open that up or explore it even more. And when we look at psychics and people like that, it seems like they have this extra ability to tune into this energy broadcast or this energy dimension and get this these information. So humans have a lot more dimensions to them, a lot more than we think through the physical that we're seeing. And yeah, always remember a famous quote: "No mystery is closed to an open mind." And I think that's what we have to do. We have to explore the unknown, as Albert Einstein said.
all right. Thank you. That was very interesting, Craig. Simon, do you have any other question?
Super interesting, Craig. It was
Yes.
lovely having you and very mind-opening. And I learned a lot for sure.
Yeah, me too.
No worries. Happy to help anytime.
Thank you.